My name is Elena. I'm 34 years old, and I live in a renovated loft in Portland, Oregon. I work as a brand strategist for a tech startup, spending most of my days analyzing consumer trends and building marketing campaigns. The job pays well enough to cover my half of the rent, the monthly parking spot, and the occasional dinner out. But honestly, I don't remember the last time I felt excited about any of it. I share this space with Marcus, my husband of 6 years. Marcus is a software engineer at one of the big firms downtown. He's brilliant, everyone says so. Sharp jawline, dark-framed glasses, always dressed in those expensive minimalist sweaters that look effortless but cost a fortune. To anyone looking in from the outside, we probably seem like the ideal modern couple. Young professionals, no kids, living in a trendy neighborhood with exposed brick walls and floor-to-ceiling windows. But what they don't see is the silence. The kind that fills a room even when two people are sitting right next to each other. It started small. Marcus coming home late saying he had a deadline. Me nodding, reheating dinner alone. Then it became normal. Expected. I stopped asking when he'd be home. He stopped telling me where he'd been. We became two strangers sharing the same address. Last Thursday was different though. It was supposed to be our anniversary. 6 years since we stood in front of our friends and family and promised forever. I didn't expect anything grand. I just wanted us to sit down together, maybe talk like we used to. So I left work early, picked up ingredients for his favorite meal, pan-seared salmon with lemon butter sauce, and set the table with the nice plates we got as wedding gifts but never use. I lit candles, poured wine, put on the dress he once said made my eyes look brighter. And I waited. 7 o'clock came and went. Then 8. By 9, the salmon had gone cold, the candles had burned halfway down, and my phone still showed no messages. Called him twice. Both times it rang until voicemail. I texted. I'm waiting. Where are you? Nothing. At 10:42 my phone finally buzzed. Not a call. A text. Short. Blunt. Stuck at work. Major bug in the system. Don't wait up. I stared at those words for a long time. No apology. No acknowledgement of the date. Not even a single emoji to soften the blow. Just a flat statement like he was updating a ticket in some project management tool. I didn't cry. I think I was too numb for that. I just quietly packed up the food, blew out the candles and changed back into my sweatpants. Then I sat on the couch in the dark, staring at the city lights through our big windows, wondering when exactly I became so forgettable. Marcus came home around midnight. I heard his keys in the lock, the soft shuffle of his shoes being kicked off in the entryway. He walked past me without a word, heading straight for the bedroom. I didn't move, didn't say anything. What was there to say? The next morning I woke up early and went to the gym before work, trying to shake off the heaviness in my chest. When I got back, Marcus was already gone. No note. No coffee made. Just an empty apartment that felt colder than usual. I went through my day on autopilot, emails, meetings, client calls, but my mind kept drifting. Something felt off. It wasn't just the missed anniversary. It was the way he'd looked right through me last night like I wasn't even there. Around noon I decided to call his office. I don't even know why. Maybe I just wanted to hear his voice. Maybe I needed confirmation that he was real, that we were still real. The receptionist picked up on the second ring. Marcus Holloway? Oh, he's not here today. Actually, he resigned 2 weeks ago. Didn't he tell you? The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. I mumbled something incoherent and hung up. 2 weeks. He quit his job 2 weeks ago and never said a word. I stood in the middle of my office hallway, heart pounding, trying to piece together what this meant. The late nights. The distance. The complete indifference. Suddenly, everything clicked into place with terrifying clarity. This wasn't about work. This wasn't about a bug in the system or a looming deadline. Marcus was leaving, and I was the last person he planned to tell. I left work early, claiming a migraine, which wasn't entirely a lie. My head was pounding, my hands were shaking, and every turn on the drive home felt like I was moving through thick fog. I kept replaying the receptionist's words. He resigned 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks. 14 days of lying. 14 days of him leaving for a job that didn't exist anymore while I made coffee in the mornings and asked how his day was. I pulled into our building's parking garage and immediately noticed something wrong. Marcus's car was there. In the middle of a Friday afternoon. He was home. My heart hammered against my ribs as I rode the elevator to the 4th floor. When I unlocked the door and stepped inside, the apartment was eerily quiet except for movement coming from the bedroom. "Marcus!" I called out, my voice sounding small and unfamiliar. No answer. I walked down the hallway, each step heavier than the last. The bedroom door was open. And there he was, standing beside our bed with 2 suitcases open, methodically folding clothes and placing them inside. His laptop bag sat by the door already packed. His watch collection, the one thing he truly cared about, was gone from the dresser. "What are you doing?" The question came out barely above a whisper. He looked up, and for a split second I saw something flicker across his face. Guilt maybe. Or just annoyance at being caught. "You're home early," he said flatly, then went back to packing. "I called your office," I said, stepping into the room. "They told me you quit 2 weeks ago." His jaw tightened, but he didn't stop folding. "I was going to tell you." "When?" My voice cracked. "When were you going to tell me, Marcus?" "After you were already gone." He sighed, the kind of sigh that suggested I was being dramatic. Then he reached into his laptop bag and pulled out a manila folder. He set it on the dresser between us. I didn't want to look. I already knew what it was. But my eyes betrayed me, landing on the top document. Bold letters across the header. "Petition for dissolution of marriage." The room tilted. You can't be serious." "I've thought about this for a long time, Elena." His voice was calm, measured, like he was presenting a project proposal. "We're not happy. You know that as well as I do. So this is how you handle it?" I grabbed the folder, hands trembling. "You quit your job, pack your bags, and serve me divorce papers without a single conversation?" "What conversation?" He finally looked at me, eyes cold. "You're never here, Elena. Even when you're physically here, you're somewhere else. Always working, always distracted. When was the last time you asked about my day and actually listened to the answer?" The accusation hit me like a slap. "Are you kidding me right now? I asked you every single day. You're the one who stopped answering. You're the one who—" "This isn't working," he interrupted. "It hasn't been working for a long time. I need someone who's present. Someone who puts effort into the relationship." I let out a bitter laugh. "Effort? I made dinner for our anniversary. I waited 4 hours for you to come home. And you texted me that you were stuck at work. At a job you don't even have anymore." "I was meeting with someone," he said simply. The words landed like stones in my stomach. "Meeting with who?" He zipped up the first suitcase. "Her name is Vanessa. She's a UX designer. We met at a conference last year." He paused, meeting my eyes with something that looked almost like pity. "She gets me, Elena. She understands what I need." My knees felt weak. I sat down on the edge of the bed, still clutching the divorce papers. "How long? Does it matter? How long, Marcus?" 8 months. He said it without hesitation, without shame. 8 months. While I was cooking dinners he never ate, while I was trying to understand why he felt so distant, while I was blaming myself for not being enough, he was with someone else. "I got a job offer in Seattle," he continued, lifting the suitcase off the bed. "Vanessa lives there. Her company offered me a position. Better pay, better benefits. I start Monday." "Monday," I repeated numbly. "As in 3 days from now. I'm leaving tonight. I have an Airbnb booked for the weekend to get settled." He grabbed the second suitcase. "The lease here is in both our names, but I've already talked to the landlord. I'm off the lease as of next month. You'll need to decide if you want to stay and take it over, or get out." He stopped, looking at me with raised eyebrows. "Get out." I stood up, my whole body shaking. "Right now. Take your things and leave." For a moment we just stared at each other. 6 years of marriage reduced to this, standing on opposite sides of a room that suddenly felt like a canyon. Marcus picked up both suitcases. "I'll send movers for the rest next week. The lawyers will be in touch." He walked toward the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, Elena, I hope you find someone who makes you happy." The door closed behind him with a soft click that echoed through the empty loft. I sat there in the silence, divorce papers scattered on the bed beside me, and finally let myself cry. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Marcus's face, calm, detached, like he was discussing a failed software update instead of our marriage. 8 months. The words kept circling through my mind like vultures. By sunrise, I'd gone through every stage of grief at least twice. Denial gave way to anger. Anger dissolved into bargaining with a universe that clearly wasn't listening. And then finally, somewhere around 5 in the morning, I landed on something that felt like acceptance. Or maybe just exhaustion. Called in sick to work. My boss Sarah didn't ask questions. Maybe she heard something in my voice, that hollow scraped-out quality that comes from crying until there's nothing left. I spent Saturday in a fog, moving through the apartment like a ghost. Everything reminded me of him, of the life I thought we were building. The coffee maker we'd argued about buying because it was too expensive. The couch we'd spent 3 hours assembling. Laughing when we realized we'd put the legs on backward. The framed photo from our honeymoon in Cancun. Both of us sunburned and grinning like idiots. I took the photo down and shoved it in a drawer. Then I sat on the floor and cried again. Sunday morning brought an unexpected visitor. My sister Jenna showed up at my door with a bag of bagels and 2 large coffees. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug without saying a word. "How did you know?" I mumbled into her shoulder. "You ignored my texts for 2 days. That's never happened before." She pulled back, studying me with worried eyes. "What happened?" I told her everything. The missed anniversary, the resignation I knew nothing about, the suitcases, Vanessa, Seattle. All of it came pouring out in a jumbled, tear-soaked confession. Jenna listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from shock to fury. 8 months, she finally said, her voice tight. "That's spineless, narcissistic." She stopped herself, taking a breath. "I'm sorry. I know you loved him." "I don't know if I did," I admitted. "Not at the end, anyway. I think I just loved the idea of what we were supposed to be." Jenna squeezed my hand. "Have you looked at the papers yet? Actually read them?" I shook my head. The manila folder was still sitting on the kitchen counter where I'd left it, like a bomb I was afraid to defuse. Together we went through the documents. Standard dissolution forms mostly. But then I found something that made my blood run cold. An asset division proposal. According to Marcus's lawyer, he was claiming that most of the furniture, the artwork, even the kitchen appliances were his personal property brought into the marriage. "That's insane," Jenna said, reading over my shoulder. "You two bought all of this together after you got married." "Not all of it." I stood up and walked to my desk in the corner. The one piece of furniture that was genuinely mine. I started rifling through the drawers, looking for the folder I kept with important documents. Receipts. I had receipts for almost everything. The sectional couch, purchased on my credit card 2 months after the wedding. The dining table, joint account, but I'd been the one to order it. Even that stupidly expensive espresso machine he'd insisted we needed, my card, my purchase. "He's banking on you not fighting back," Jenna said quietly. "He thinks you'll just let him take whatever he wants because you're too hurt or too tired to argue." She was right. That was exactly what he thought. The same way he'd assumed I wouldn't question his late nights, wouldn't call his office, wouldn't push back on anything. He'd spent 8 months preparing his exit, probably assuming I'd be too devastated to do anything but sign whatever papers he put in front of me. Something hardened in my chest. Not quite anger, it was colder than that. More like clarity. "I need a lawyer," I said. Jenna smiled. "I know someone. One of the partners at my firm handles family law. She's tough. Like really tough. She made her ex-husband cry in mediation. Perfect." Monday morning I called in sick again and met with Jenna's lawyer friend, Patricia Chun. She was in her 50s, sharply dressed, with eyes that seemed to calculate the value of everything in the room, including me. I showed her the divorce papers and my folder of receipts. Patricia read through everything methodically, occasionally making notes on a yellow legal pad. Finally she looked up. "Your husband's proposal is aggressive and largely fictional. We can contest almost all of this." "Good. There's something else," Patricia said, tapping her pen against the papers. "It says here he quit his job 2 weeks ago, but already has employment lined up in Seattle. That's fast. Suspiciously fast." He said Vanessa's company hired him. Vanessa being the woman he's been involved with for 8 months? Patricia's eyebrow arched. The timeline is interesting. Some companies have policies against hiring romantic partners of existing employees. Others have disclosure requirements. If he and Vanessa weren't transparent about their relationship, and if the company found out. I leaned forward. What are you saying? I'm saying there might be more leverage here than you think. But first, I need you to tell me everything you know about Vanessa. Last name, company, anything. I pulled out my phone, my hand surprisingly steady. Let me see what I can find. It took less than 5 minutes. Marcus had never been careful with his passwords. We'd shared a laptop for years, and his email was still logged in on my tablet. Something he'd apparently forgotten to change. I found the correspondence immediately. Professional at first, then progressively more personal. References to dinners, weekend trips, inside jokes. And there it was, her full name and email signature. Vanessa Chen, Senior UX Designer at Parallax Digital. Patricia's eyes gleamed. Send me those emails. All of them. As I forwarded the messages, something my sister had said earlier echoed in my mind. He's banking on you not fighting back. Well, Marcus had made a lot of wrong assumptions about me lately. This was going to be another one. Patricia worked fast. By Wednesday, I had a formal response to Marcus's divorce petition sitting in my inbox, ready for review. She'd contested nearly every item on his asset division list, backed by receipts, bank statements, and credit card records. But more importantly, she'd started digging into his new employment situation. I made a few calls, Patricia told me during our follow-up meeting. Parallax Digital does have a relationship disclosure policy. Employees are required to report romantic relationships with colleagues, especially when one party is involved in the hiring process. And let me guess, neither of them reported it? Not according to my contact in their HR department. Patricia smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was the smile of someone who just found the weak point in an opponent's armor. If the company discovers the relationship after the fact, particularly if it influenced a hiring decision, they take it very seriously. What happens then? Depends on the company. Could be a formal reprimand. Could be termination. At minimum, it would make Marcus's fresh start in Seattle significantly more complicated. I sat back in my chair processing this. Part of me, the part that had loved Marcus once, felt a twinge of guilt. But then I remembered his face when he'd handed me those divorce papers. The coldness. The assumption that I'd just accept whatever he decided for both of us. I'm not trying to ruin his life, I said slowly. I just want what's fair. Then let's start with fair, Patricia said. I'll send this response to his lawyer. We'll see how he reacts. Sometimes just showing that you're willing to fight is enough to bring people to the negotiating table. She was right. Marcus's lawyer called 2 days later requesting a mediation meeting. The mediation was scheduled for the following Tuesday at a neutral office downtown. I dressed carefully that morning. A navy blazer, simple jewelry, my hair pulled back in a professional bun. I wanted to look composed, strong. Nothing like the crying woman he'd left behind. Marcus was already there when Patricia and I arrived, sitting next to his lawyer, a middle-aged man in an expensive suit who looked vaguely bored. Marcus, on the other hand, looked uncomfortable. He wouldn't meet my eyes. The mediator, a calm woman named Diane, started with the basics. Standard explanation of the process, ground rules, expectations. Then she turned to the asset division. Mr. Holloway, your initial petition claims sole ownership of several items purchased during the marriage. Mrs. Holloway has provided documentation suggesting otherwise. Would you like to address this? Marcus's lawyer jumped in before he could answer. My client may have been mistaken about certain purchase dates. We're prepared to revise the asset list. Mistaken, I repeated, the word tasting bitter. It was the first thing I'd said since arriving, and Marcus finally looked at me. You were mistaken about who bought the couch we sat on every night? The bed we slept in? The kitchen table where I ate dinner alone for 8 months while you were with her? Elena, Marcus started. Don't. I held up my hand. You don't get to Elena me. You lost that right when you quit your job, planned your exit, and filed for divorce without a single conversation. The room went silent. Even the mediator looked slightly taken aback. Patricia cleared her throat. My client is willing to negotiate the asset division fairly. based on actual documentation. However, there are some concerns about Mr. Holloway's new employment situation that may impact our discussions. Marcus's lawyer frowned. What concerns? The position at Parallax Digital. We understand Mr. Holloway's romantic partner was instrumental in securing that role. We also understand that neither party disclosed their relationship to the company, as required by policy. The color drained from Marcus's face. That's a separate employment matter. His lawyer said quickly. It has no bearing on this divorce proceeding. It does if Mr. Holloway's financial projections are based on employment he obtained through policy violations, Patricia countered smoothly. It affects his ability to pay spousal support, for one thing. Spousal support? Marcus finally found his voice. We both work. We make similar salaries. There's no reason for spousal support. You make a similar salary, I corrected. I still have my job. You quit yours to move across the country for a position you may or may not keep once your employer learns the full circumstances of your hiring. His jaw clenched. Are you threatening me? I'm stating facts, I said calmly. You made choices, Marcus. You chose to have an affair. You chose to hide it. You chose to accept a job offer that your girlfriend arranged without telling her company you were sleeping together. Those are your choices. I'm just choosing not to make things easier for you anymore. The mediator intervened. Perhaps we should take a short break. Let everyone collect their thoughts. Marcus and his lawyer stepped out into the hallway. Patricia turned to me with an approving nod. Well done. Stay calm, stay factual. You're doing great. But my hands were shaking under the table. Confronting Marcus like this, seeing the realization dawn on his face that I wasn't going to roll over, it was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. When they returned 15 minutes later, Marcus looked defeated. My client is prepared to make a revised offer, his lawyer announced. An equitable division of jointly purchased assets based on documented evidence. No spousal support claims from either party. And in exchange, we ask that certain employment matters remain confidential. Patricia looked at me. I nodded. We can work with that, she said. The rest of the mediation went smoothly. Assets were divided fairly. The apartment lease would transfer solely to my name. We'd each keep our own vehicles, our own retirement accounts. Clean, simple, done. As we stood to leave, Marcus caught my arm. Elena, wait. I stopped but didn't turn around. I'm sorry, he said quietly, for how I handled this. You deserved better. I finally looked at him, really looked at him, and realized I felt nothing. No love, no hate, not even the sharp pain of betrayal. Just nothing. Yeah, I said. I did. Then I walked out. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. No drama, no last-minute complications. Just a signature on a document and the quiet closing of a chapter I'd spent 6 years writing. I kept the apartment. Marcus had already moved to Seattle, so there was no awkward overlap, no painful goodbyes. One day his remaining boxes were sitting in the spare bedroom, and the next movers came and took them away. The loft felt bigger after that. Emptier but also lighter somehow. Jenna helped me rearrange the furniture. We moved the couch to face the windows instead of the TV, brought in some plants from a local nursery, hung new curtains. Small changes that somehow made the space feel less like our apartment and more like mine. You should celebrate, Jenna said one evening as we assembled a bookshelf I'd impulse bought online. Go out. Meet people. Remind yourself there's life after Marcus. I'm not ready to date, I said automatically. I didn't say date. I said meet people. Have conversations with humans who aren't your lawyer or your sister. She handed me a screwdriver. There's a networking mixer next Friday. Young professionals, creative industries. Come with me. That sounds awful. It'll be awful together. Come on. Free wine and mediocre cheese. What else are you doing? She had a point. My social life had atrophied during the marriage. Marcus hadn't liked my friends much. Too loud, too opinionated, too unpredictable. So gradually I'd stop calling them. Stop going out. I'd let my world shrink down to just work and home. And now home was just me. Fine, I sighed. But I'm leaving after one glass of wine. The mixer was held at a converted warehouse in the Pearl District. All exposed beams and Edison bulbs. Exactly the kind of aggressively trendy venue I normally avoided. But Jenna was right. The wine was free, and being surrounded by strangers was oddly comforting. Nobody here knew about Marcus. Nobody pitied me or asked how I was holding up. I was standing by the appetizer table, debating whether the bruschetta was worth the risk of garlic breath, when someone spoke beside me. "The stuffed mushrooms are better." I turned. The woman next to me was probably late 30s, with short silver hair and paint-stained fingers. She wore a leather jacket over a vintage band tee, and had the kind of easy confidence I envied. "Good to know," I said, grabbing a mushroom. "First time at one of these things?" she asked. "That obvious? You have the look. Like you're calculating the socially acceptable minimum time before you can escape." She extended her hand. "I'm Morgan. Graphic designer, chronic introvert. Only here because my business partner threatened to fire me if I didn't network." I laughed, shaking her hand. "Elena. Brand strategist, recent divorcee. Only here because my sister dragged me." "Ah, the sister draft. Classic." Morgan grabbed a glass of wine from a passing server. "How recent?" "Finalized 3 weeks ago." "Ouch. Fresh wound. How are you doing?" Most people ask that question like they were checking a box, not actually wanting an answer. But Morgan's eyes were genuinely curious, kind even. "Honestly? I don't know yet," I admitted. "Some days I'm fine. Other days I'm angry. And some days I just feel relieved." Morgan nodded. "That's normal. I went through it 5 years ago. Married my college girlfriend. Realized too late we'd both changed into completely different people. The relief was the weirdest part, like I was supposed to be devastated. But mostly I was just glad it was over." "Exactly. I felt something loosen in my chest. Everyone keeps waiting for me to fall apart. But I think I did that already. Now I'm just trying to figure out who I am without him." "Best part of divorce," Morgan said, raising her glass. "Getting to start over. Clean slate. No compromises." We talked for over an hour. About work, about art, about the strange freedom of living alone. Morgan told me about her design studio, showed me photos of a mural project she was working on downtown. I found myself relaxing, laughing, engaging in a way I hadn't in months. When Jenna finally found me, she looked shocked. "You're still here." And smiling. "Who are you and what did you do with my sister?" "Jenna, this is Morgan." "Morgan, my sister Jenna." They shook hands and I caught Jenna's approving look. As the event wound down, Morgan pulled out her phone. "Can I get your number? I'm always looking for collaborators on projects, and I think you'd have great instincts for the branding side." "Sure," I said, typing my number into her phone. Walking to the car later, Jenna linked her arm through mine. "See? Not so awful." "No," I agreed, surprising myself. "Not awful at all." For the first time since Marcus left, I felt something I hadn't expected, possibility. Morgan and I started meeting for coffee every couple of weeks. What began as casual professional networking evolved into something that felt like genuine friendship. She introduced me to her circle: designers, photographers, small business owners, people who talked about their work with actual passion instead of treating it like a necessary evil. Through Morgan, I landed a freelance project designing a brand identity for a new sustainable clothing company. It was small, nothing that would pay the bills, but it reminded me why I'd gotten into marketing in the first place. The creative problem solving. The satisfaction of building something from scratch. My full-time job, meanwhile, was becoming increasingly unbearable. The tech startup I worked for had grown rapidly, and with growth came bureaucracy. Every campaign now required approval from 5 different departments. Every creative idea got diluted by committee until it was safe, boring, forgettable. One Tuesday in late October, I sat through a 3-hour meeting about the font choice for a banner ad. 3 hours. For a font. When I got back to my desk, I opened my laptop and stared at the screen, feeling something crystallize inside me. I was wasting my life. That evening I called Jenna. "I think I want to quit my job," I said. There was a pause. "Okay. Why?" "Because I'm miserable. Because every day feels like I'm slowly disappearing. Because if I spend one more hour in a conference room arguing about serif versus sans serif, I'm going to lose my mind." "Valid reasons," Jenna said. "What would you do instead?" "I don't know. Freelance full-time, maybe?" I've been getting more project inquiries through Morgan's network. It wouldn't be stable at first, but you're not happy now anyway, Jenna finished. Elena, you don't need my permission. You're financially stable. The divorce is settled. You don't have kids or a mortgage. If there was ever a time to take a risk, it's now. She was right. For the first time in my adult life, I had no one to consider but myself. No husband to consult, no shared expenses to juggle. Just me and whatever I decided to build. I gave my notice the next day. My boss Sarah took it surprisingly well. I'm not shocked, she admitted. You've seemed checked out for months. Where are you going? Nowhere yet. I'm going freelance. Brave. She smiled. But I think you'll be good at it. You've always been better at the creative side than the corporate politics. My last day was surreal. I cleaned out my desk, said goodbye to coworkers I barely knew, and walked out of the building feeling lighter than I had in years. Terrified, yes, but also alive. Freelancing was chaotic at first. Some weeks I had 3 projects running simultaneously. Other weeks I had none and panicked about money. But slowly I built a client base. Small businesses who wanted authentic branding, not corporate polish. Startups who valued creativity over safe choices. I worked from coffee shops, from my apartment, from Morgan's studio when I needed the energy of other creative people around me. I set my own hours, took projects that excited me, and said no to the ones that didn't. It was exhilarating and exhausting in equal measure. Then one evening in December my phone rang. Unknown Seattle number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Hello. Elena. Marcus's voice. I hadn't heard it in almost 4 months. I hope it's okay that I'm calling. My stomach tightened. What do you want, Marcus? I wanted to check in. See how you're doing. I'm fine. Was there something specific you needed? He hesitated. Vanessa and I broke up. I waited, saying nothing. It happened about a month ago. I wanted to tell you because I know you probably heard things, and I just wanted you to hear it from me. Marcus, we're divorced. Your relationship status isn't my business anymore. I know. He sighed. I made a mistake, Elena, leaving you the way I handled everything. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I wanted to say I'm sorry. Really sorry. I stood up, walking to my apartment window. The city lights stretched out below, beautiful and indifferent. I appreciate the apology, I said carefully, but I'm not interested in relitigating the past. I've moved on. Have you met someone? He asked, and I heard something fragile in his voice. That's not your concern. Take care of yourself, Marcus. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking, but not from sadness. From anger. He called expecting what? Sympathy? Reconciliation? The old Elena who would have comforted him even as he broke her heart? That Elena was gone, and I didn't miss her at all. Marcus called twice more over the next week. I didn't answer. He sent a few texts, casual at first, asking about the apartment, then more personal, reminiscing about trips we'd taken, meals we'd shared. I deleted them without responding. On the 3rd attempt, he left a voicemail. Elena, please. I know I hurt you, but can we at least talk? I think we both made mistakes. Maybe we gave up too easily. I played the message for Morgan over coffee the next morning. She listened, then set down her cup with a sharp clink. He's rewriting history. You didn't give up on anything. He quit his job, moved to another city, and handed you divorce papers. I know. So why do you look conflicted? I stared into my latte. I don't know. Maybe part of me wonders if he's right. If I could have tried harder, been more present. Stop. Morgan's voice was firm. That's the gaslighting talking. He had an affair for 8 months and blamed you for it. Now his rebound relationship crashed and he wants the safety net back. Don't be his safety net. She was right. I knew she was right. But there was still a small, stubborn part of me that remembered the good times. The early days when Marcus and I would stay up late talking about our dreams, when he'd bring me coffee in bed on Sunday mornings, when we'd felt like a team. But that version of us had died long before the divorce papers. Maybe it had never really existed at all. I blocked his number that afternoon. 2 days before Christmas, I was finishing up a project when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, assuming it was Marcus trying another angle. but curiosity made me open it. Hi Elena, this is Vanessa. I got your number from Marcus's phone. I know this is weird, but could we talk? It's important. I stared at the message for a full minute. Vanessa, the woman Marcus had left me for. What could she possibly want? Against my better judgment, I replied. About what? The response came immediately. About Marcus. And some things I think you should know. Can we meet? Coffee tomorrow. Every instinct told me to decline, to block this number too and move on with my life. But something else, call it morbid curiosity, made me agree. We met at a neutral cafe on the east side, far from anywhere I normally went. I arrived early, ordered a drink and positioned myself where I could see the door. When Vanessa walked in, I recognized her immediately from the photos I'd found in Marcus's email months ago. She was striking, tall, polished, with perfectly styled auburn hair and designer clothes. But up close she looked tired. Dark circles under her eyes that even expensive concealer couldn't quite hide. Thank you for meeting me, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure I would either, I admitted. What's this about, Vanessa? She ordered a tea, then turned to face me directly. I need you to know the truth about what happened. About Marcus and me. I know what happened. He had an affair with you while we were married. He left me for you. You broke up. He's trying to come crawling back. That about cover it? Vanessa flinched. Yes, but there's more you don't know. I'm listening. She took a breath. Marcus told me you two were already separated when we met. He said you were sleeping in separate rooms, that the divorce was just a formality you hadn't filed yet. He made it sound like the marriage was already over. I felt heat rise in my chest. We were not separated. We shared a bed until the day he moved out. I know that now. Vanessa's voice was quiet. I found the texts on his phone. Messages to you from last spring, you asking what time he'd be home for dinner. Him saying he loved you. All while he was telling me you two were essentially roommates. My hands tightened around my cup. Why are you telling me this? Because he's doing it again. She met my eyes. There's someone new. A woman from his gym. I saw the messages before we broke up. The same pattern, late nights, vague excuses, sudden work emergencies. He's been seeing her for at least 6 weeks. While you two were still together. Yes. Vanessa's expression hardened. And when I confronted him, he said the same things he probably said about you. That I was too demanding. That I didn't understand him. That he needed someone more supportive. A bitter laugh escaped me. Let me guess, he's been calling you too. Saying he made a mistake. Constantly. Flowers to my office. Long emails about how we're meant to be together. She shook her head. I almost believed him. Then I found out about the gym woman. That's when I realized, this is who he is. We sat in silence for a moment, two women connected by the same terrible choice in men. Why did you really want to meet? I asked. Vanessa looked at me steadily. To warn you. And to apologize. I helped destroy your marriage even if I didn't know it. I'm sorry. I studied Vanessa across the table, trying to reconcile the polished woman in front of me with the villain I'd created in my head over the past months. She wasn't what I expected. There was no smugness, no defensive justification. Just tired honesty. I appreciate the apology, I said carefully. But you didn't destroy my marriage. Marcus did. He lied to both of us. Vanessa nodded, relief flickering across her face. I keep replaying everything, looking for signs I missed. But he was so convincing. He showed me apartment listings, talked about how relieved he was to finally be moving on. I thought I was helping him start fresh, not being the other woman. He's good at that. Making you feel like you're the reasonable one while he rewrites reality. I took a sip of my coffee. Did he tell you about the job situation? The policy violations? He told me his lawyer handled it. That it was all a misunderstanding. She paused. Was it? No. He got hired through your connections without disclosing your relationship. The company found out during the divorce proceedings. I watched her reaction. You didn't know? I knew there was some HR issue, but Marcus said it was just bureaucratic nonsense. He made it sound like nothing. Vanessa's jaw tightened. God, I was so stupid. You weren't stupid. You trusted someone who turned out to be untrustworthy. That's not the same thing. We talked for another hour. Vanessa told me about the relationship, how charming Marcus had been at first, how gradually the criticism started. She wasn't interesting enough, wasn't domestic enough, worked too many hours. The same complaints he'd leveled at me, just repackaged. The worst part, Vanessa said, is that I changed for him. I cut back my hours, started cooking elaborate dinners, bought new clothes he'd approve of. And it was never enough. There was always something else I was doing wrong. I know the feeling. When we broke up, I felt like I'd lost myself. Then I realized I had lost myself. I'd spent 8 months trying to be whoever he wanted instead of who I actually am. She met my eyes. How did you get past it? I'm still getting past it, I admitted. But it helps to remember that his unhappiness isn't my responsibility. He's going to find something wrong with every woman he's with because the problem isn't them. It's him. Vanessa nodded slowly. You're stronger than I thought you'd be. I wasn't always. Right after he left, I was a mess. But somewhere along the way, I stopped waiting for him to validate me. I started building a life I actually wanted. What does that look like? I thought about it. Smaller than before in some ways. Quieter. But it's mine. I work with people I respect. I spend time on things that matter to me. I don't apologize for taking up space anymore. Vanessa smiled, but it was sad. I need to figure out how to do that. As we stood to leave, she hesitated. Can I ask you something? If Marcus actually changed, if he went to therapy, did the work, became the person he keeps promising to be, would you take him back? I didn't have to think about it. No. Why not? Because I don't want to spend my life wondering when the other shoe will drop. Wondering if he's really working late or if there's another Vanessa somewhere. I deserve better than that. We both do. She nodded, understanding settling over her features. Thank you for meeting me. And for not hating me. I did hate you, I said honestly. For a while. But hating you took energy I needed for other things. Like building a life he can't touch. We parted ways outside the cafe. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus from yet another new number. I know you're upset, but we need to talk. I made mistakes, but so did you. We can work through this if you just give me a chance. I read it twice, then blocked the number. On the drive home, I thought about everything Vanessa had told me. The lies, the patterns, the new woman already waiting in the wings. Part of me felt vindicated. Proof that leaving had been the right choice. But another part just felt sad for everyone caught in Marcus's orbit, including Marcus himself. But that sadness wasn't my burden to carry anymore. When I got home, I opened my laptop and pulled up a project proposal I'd been drafting. A complete rebrand for a women's shelter. Something I'd be doing pro bono because it mattered. The kind of work that felt meaningful instead of mercenary. I typed until midnight, lost in the creative flow, forgetting to eat dinner or check my phone. And when I finally closed my laptop and crawled into bed, I realized something had shifted. I wasn't healing from Marcus anymore. I was just living. And that felt like victory enough. Winter melted into spring. And with it came a rhythm I'd never experienced before. My freelance work was steady enough that I could afford the apartment comfortably, even splurge occasionally on things that brought me joy. A pottery class on Thursday evenings. Fresh flowers from the farmer's market every Sunday. A weekend trip to the coast with Morgan and her girlfriend. I hadn't heard from Marcus in 3 months. No calls, no texts from burner numbers, no surprise appearances. The silence felt like closure. The kind I'd been chasing since the divorce papers first landed on my table. Then one Tuesday in April, Jenna called during my lunch break. You need to sit down for this, she said. I'm already sitting. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong exactly. But I just saw something on LinkedIn. Marcus got engaged. I felt nothing. No sharp pain, no bitter anger, not even surprise. Just a mild curiosity. To the gym woman? I think so. Her name is Ashley. She works in pharmaceutical sales. They've been dating for 4 months apparently. For months. He'd been trying to reconcile with me 3 months ago, and now he was engaged to someone new. The math was almost impressive in its dysfunction. Good for him, I said and meant it. Maybe she's the one who'll finally make him happy. You're serious? Completely. I hope he finds whatever he's looking for. I just don't want any part of it. After we hung up, I sat with the news for a few minutes, testing my emotional response like probing a sore tooth. But there was nothing there. No pain, no regret. Just relief that he'd moved on and left me alone. That weekend, Morgan invited me to an art gallery opening in the Pearl District. Wear something nice, she said. There'll be wine, networking, and a sculptor whose work you'll love. The gallery was packed when I arrived. Artists, collectors, tech people trying to look cultured. I grabbed a glass of wine and wandered through the exhibits, genuinely impressed by the work on display. Abstract pieces that played with light and shadow. Bronze sculptures that seemed to shift depending on your angle. Beautiful, isn't it? I turned. The man beside me was probably early 40s, with kind eyes and salt and pepper hair. He wore a linen shirt and jeans, no wedding ring, holding a glass of red wine. It is, I agreed. The way she captures movement in something so static. It's remarkable. You have a good eye. He extended his hand. David. I teach sculpture at Pacific Northwest College of Art. Elena. Brand strategist turned freelancer. We talked about the exhibit, about art, about the strange Portland weather. David had an easy laugh and asked questions like he actually cared about the answers. When Morgan found me 20 minutes later, she raised an eyebrow approvingly. I see you've met David, she said, grinning. He's one of the good ones. David smiled. Morgan exaggerates. But I try. As the evening wound down, David asked for my number. There's a ceramics exhibit opening next month at the museum. Would you want to go? As friends, he added quickly. Or potentially more than friends if you're open to that. No pressure either way. I hesitated, old instincts flaring. But then I thought about everything I'd built over the past year. The life I'd created, the confidence I'd reclaimed, the understanding that I didn't need anyone to complete me. I'd like that, I said, surprising myself. We exchanged numbers, and when I left the gallery that night, I felt something unfamiliar bubbling up. Not love, it was too soon for that. But possibility. The simple, quiet knowledge that good things could still happen. The date with David was easy. We wandered through the museum, debating the merits of different artists, then grabbed Thai food at a small restaurant he recommended. He talked about his students, his upcoming sabbatical project, his daughter from a previous marriage who was studying marine biology. He asked about my work, my transition to freelancing, what I wanted to build next. There were no red flags, no warning signs. Just two people enjoying each other's company without hidden agendas. When he walked me to my car, he didn't try to kiss me. Just said, I had a really nice time. Can we do this again? I'd like that. Driving home, I thought about Marcus and his fourth relationship in a year. About Vanessa rebuilding her life in Seattle. About the woman who'd come before me and the ones who'd come after. All of us trying to fill a hole that Marcus himself had created and only he could fix. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I had my own life to build. And for the first time in years, I was excited to see where it would lead. Not because of a man, not because of validation from anyone else. Just because I'd finally learned the most important lesson. I was enough exactly as I was. And that knowledge was worth more than any relationship had ever been. 6 months later, I stood on the balcony of my apartment, watching the October sunset paint the Portland sky in shades of amber and rose. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of rain and fallen leaves. In the distance, Mount Hood stood silhouetted against the fading light. Behind me, I could hear voices and laughter filtering through the open door. Morgan and her girlfriend were arguing playfully about playlist choices, while Jenna arranged appetizers on the counter. David was telling a story that had everyone chuckling. Something about a sculpture mishap involving his students and an unfortunate amount of plaster. I'd hosted dozens of gatherings in this apartment with Marcus, but they'd always felt performative. Carefully curated guest lists, expensive wine we couldn't afford, conversations that stayed surface level and safe. Tonight was different. These were people who knew me, really knew me, and liked me anyway. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hi Elena. This is Ashley. I hope it's okay that I'm reaching out. I got your number from Vanessa. Could we talk? I stared at the message, a familiar pattern emerging. Marcus's new fiancée, contacting the ex-wife. History repeating itself in depressingly predictable ways. But this time I felt no obligation to respond. No curiosity, no desire to warn her or save her from whatever she was about to discover. She'd have to learn the same lessons Vanessa and I had learned. Some things you can't be told, you have to live through them. I deleted the message and slipped my phone back into my pocket. You okay? David had come out to join me, 2 glasses of wine in hand. He offered me one. Yeah, I said, taking the glass. Just letting go of something that doesn't matter anymore. He didn't press for details, just stood beside me looking out at the city. That was one of the things I appreciated most about David. He gave me space to be complex, moody, private when I needed to be. No demands for constant emotional access. We'd been seeing each other for 5 months now, taking things slow. Some nights we'd spend together, others apart. He had his life, his work, his daughter. I had mine. We complemented each other instead of completing each other, and that distinction felt crucial. Your sister says you landed the museum contract, David said. I smiled. Just signed it this morning. Full rebrand for their permanent collection wing. It's the biggest project I've taken on. That's incredible, Elena. You should be proud. I am. And I meant it. Not in the self-deprecating way I used to accept compliments, but with genuine satisfaction in my own accomplishment. We stood in comfortable silence, watching the sky darken. Behind us, someone turned up the music. Through the window I could see Jenna dancing, glass of wine in hand, completely unself-conscious. A year ago I'd been sitting in this same spot, clutching divorce papers and wondering how I'd survive. Now here I was, not just surviving but actually thriving. Building a career that energized me instead of draining me. Surrounded by people who valued me for who I was, not who they needed me to be. You know what's strange? I said. I spent so long thinking the divorce was the worst thing that could happen to me. But honestly, it was probably the best thing. David glanced at me. How so? It forced me to figure out who I was without someone else defining me. Without someone else's needs dictating my choices. I took a sip of wine. I don't think I would have found this version of myself if everything hadn't fallen apart first. The universe works in mysterious ways, David said lightly. Or Marcus was just an asshole and I finally woke up. He laughed. Both can be true. Inside, Morgan called out, Elena, get in here. We need a tiebreaker on whether pineapple belongs on pizza. I rolled my eyes affectionately. This is a trap. Whatever I say, someone will be offended. David squeezed my shoulder. Welcome to having opinions. It's dangerous territory. I headed back inside, David following, and rejoined my friends. The conversation flowed easily, debates about food, updates on projects, plans for a group trip to the coast in November. Normal life, mundane and beautiful in its simplicity. Later that night, after everyone had left and I was cleaning up, I caught my reflection in the window. A woman in her mid-30s wearing comfortable clothes and no makeup, hair pulled back in a messy bun. Not trying to be anything other than exactly who she was. I looked happy. Not the desperate, fragile happiness that depends on someone else's approval, but the deep, settled contentment that comes from knowing yourself and actually liking what you find. Marcus had tried to convince me I wasn't enough, that I needed to be prettier, more domestic, more compliant. But he was wrong. I was always enough. I just needed to believe it myself. And now finally I did.